Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Eye on the Eagles show. I'm Sports Information Director Tim Hackett, and now this is our wrestling preview episode, so we're happy to be joined for the first time this season by head women's wrestling coach Zach Revier. Welcome to the show, Zach.
Thanks for having me.
And welcome officially to our team as our head women's wrestling coach. This is kind of your debut, I guess, in this role, but you're certainly a familiar face in our department over the last couple of years. You have been part of this program from the jump as one of the founding members of the Avila wrestling program, now moving into a new role officially as our head women's coach going into this season. What has the last couple of months been like for you as the program has officially split into two teams rather than just one program, one team under that umbrella? It's now your team. You are now the women's wrestling coach. What has that process been like over the last couple of months?
Yeah, it's been a pretty busy process. Definitely a lot of work involved with it. But I've got a great staff with me and a lot of new girls this year. But working through some of those learning curves, bringing in a lot of new people. But we're pretty much through all those already at this point in the year. So it's all things forward at this point right now, so I'm super excited for this upcoming season.
We're super excited to have you officially in this role. Like I said, you're certainly not an unfamiliar face. You've been a part of this program since the beginning, and so I want to talk a little bit about last season, now that we've kind of had a few months to reflect back on it. And what you guys have built here in just a couple of years has been really impressive, I feel, and it's just a testament to what you guys have done. You had two athletes qualify for nationals, 3 competed conference this past season. But, just end-to-end, women's wrestling was on the scene, not just in the KCAC, but NAIA in both year 1 and in year 2. How would you kind of sum up the first 2 years of the program for you?
Yeah. So, naturally, with the first couple years of the programs, we were kind of lacking the numbers. But with the girls that we did have, a lot of them are very dedicated to the team, to the program, to this university. So that makes things easy. It was easier to really work with those fewer numbers. But that's no longer the issue here. So we'll move forward on that. But yeah, last year was a great year. We got eight girls coming back. As you mentioned, 2 of them were national qualifiers last year. With only 3 wrestling at the conference tournament, so we're shooting for that same percentage to move through this year. About 66% is kind of our goal, and I certainly think that's possible with the team that we're building here. But yeah, super excited about all 8 of my returners. We'll start from the bottom. Zoe and Mark down there. Some of our lower weight classes, they've been here since the beginning, along with Susanna as well. So it's super excited to have them back. Great thing about it is they're only juniors, so they've been here for a couple years, but they still got a couple years left. And then we've got five sophomores returning as well: Julia, KB, Jada, Sarah, and B as well. And all 8 of those girls, if they have used eligibility, they've either been nationally ranked or had nationally ranked wins for us. So I think we're going to continue to grow from that. So yeah, super excited about the returners. They've been committed to this program since they got here, and really they've been super helpful of recruiting and everything like that. They're a big part of the reason why we have so many new athletes this year.
That has really been, I think, the key storyline this summer, on top of obviously yourself moving into this role as kind of the big headliner. I think the not necessarily under the radar thing, but the kind of the next level story for this team is the word you used earlier, the numbers. It was kind of a smaller team last season, but everybody that competed got some legitimate experience like you hinted at. But I think the biggest storyline in terms of the athletes is just not just the number of athletes that you guys have brought in, but the quality of those athletes as well. So we're past the days now where there's going to just by default be 1 or 2 open spots in a duel. You've got a full team, not just a full team, but close to triple the size of the team that you had last year. What has that been like?
Like I mentioned earlier, bringing in about 2 times as many as incoming as returners. There were a couple challenges to deal with that, but they've all grown into. They're finding out who they are and what roles they serve as this program. So it's been great on that end. And then also, like you mentioned, we 18 newcomers this year, 17 freshmen, and only 1 transfer. So we're a pretty young team, but we're hungry and we're motivated. with those 17, with those 18, with a lot of local ones. We do have a couple out of state ones too, which I think is super important. But yeah, as you mentioned, most of in the past, our wrestlers, they had basically one person they could wrestle with and get a good look at. Now each of our wrestlers has 3 or 4 girls that they can wrestle with, which is super important because tournaments, obviously they wrestle a lot of different looks and styles and feels. We can replicate that in our room now. And like you said, not just with the numbers but with quality as well. So going to be, as I've mentioned earlier, I'm super excited for this year. So it should turn out pretty good with all these girls that we have.
Can you tell us more about that part specifically? Because I guess I didn't even really think about that. That, yeah, you've just got more bodies, if you will, in the room to compete against. But since you have multiple athletes now at each weight or near each weight, there's now different looks, different bodies, different approaches, different skill sets that everybody across the team now gets to compete against on a daily or weekly basis rather than just the same person every single time, because that's how you're going to typically match up. Is it really that helpful? Is it that instructive to have that diverse, I guess, of a baseline of competition even amongst your own team?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And that was one of my goals, recruiting, not only to get a couple at each weight class, but to bring in people from different parts of the country as well, because each little pocket of the country has a different style of wrestling per se. Missouri's real tough wrestling, so it's great to have a good core of Missouri girls. But it's nice to bring in girls from out of state. We got a girl from Hawaii, a girl from Texas, a girl from Arizona, and a girl from Florida, from Maryland by way of Florida as well. And the same thing, when we're competing, we're wrestling girls all over the country.
Sure.
So we need that in our room, and that was one of my big goals, and it's going to be one of my goals moving forward as well, to continue bringing in not only local girls, because we got good quality wrestlers right here in this area, but bring in those type of girls from outside as well to have more of a mix-up in the practice room a little bit.
One of the reasons that I love talking to you is how well-versed you are in this sport. Now, you've been immersed in the wrestling scene, the sport itself, for a long time now, but you have grown so adept, so knowledgeable about women's wrestling specifically over the last couple of years. And I learn something new every time I talk to both you and Coach Mateo, who we'll see next. But something else that I've learned from you over the last couple of months is how different this sport is based on where you go in the country and indeed across the world. For me, as a newcomer to the sport, it's the same sport is what I thought, but it's not the case at all. There's different disciplines, there's different techniques, people have different physical strengths based on where you are in the country. It really is that widespread and different based on where you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's part of it kind of helps that our sport is pretty new, so it's less information to sift through and dissect and everything with that. But yeah, just that's not limited to our sport, right? I know you're a hockey guy and a baseball guy. Being from Minnesota, right, we're a little bit different with our hockey up there. It's kind of, a lot of people are born on skates or with a stick in their hand.
Sure.
We can't expect that in Texas for hockey players. Same kind of thing with wrestling. There's states that even on the boys' side don't even have sanctioned wrestling in high school yet. I think there's three that aren't sanctioned for boys' high school yet. And on the girls' side, there's up to 45 states that are sanctioned now. So it's growing and getting close to the same as the boys, which is nice. But yeah, it's wrestling's a very small community, and I was blessed in college to have teammates from a lot of different states and parts of the country as well. So it's easy to, jump off their information in their clubs and their teams that they're coaching and get good people from outside of our area as well.
I think we can both speak to that by being from out of state here, but then also going to college out of state and all of your experience across the country and across the world with some of your background. I thought it was super instructive for me to be in that environment where, like, my freshman year roommate was from Seattle, I'm from North Carolina, so literally on opposite ends of the country, converging at a college in Illinois in the middle of the country to kind of, we didn't do that to split the distance, but we ended up kind of doing that just to kind of see how things were. My closest friend was from New York, we had a great friend from California, all those people that were just kind of converging in there to talk about their own experiences. We were not wrestlers, so you get that added element of, I come from this area of the world, it's different. I come from this background, this coaching style, this discipline that's a little bit different. There's different forms and styles of wrestling, as I know you can speak to, but bringing all of those different people together in one room on one team with all of these coaches overseeing that, I think makes for a really interesting melting pot and hopefully makes for a pretty unique team environment.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, there are naturally some challenges that come with that as well. But that's, like I preach to the team and preach to my staff as well. Challenges are good, right? If we don't face challenges, we're not going to grow. So that's fine. But yeah, even the vocabulary is different in some of these states. And me being from Minnesota, I've called some terms a little bit different than they do down here. So I've got to change a little bit as a coach. But yeah, like you mentioned, it's a ideally, it's going to be a great melting pot. Have a lot of culture, have a lot of diversity, but that's going to make us not only better wrestlers but better people as well. Because that's what life is all about: is learning how to interact and work with people, right? So we're doing that wrestling-wise, but we're also doing that from a social standpoint as well.
And speaking of interacting with different cultures, this is something that we can now officially kind of bring out. It's been something that has been in the works. You guys have been developing for weeks now, but talk about how wrestling is different across the country but also across the world. You have developed some serious inroads with the group of wrestlers from Ukraine that are going to be coming over here to the United States in a couple of weeks, and part of that will be kind of an exchange program almost with your team. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what we can expect to see from the Ukrainian women's team when they come here in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'm super excited about hosting them here at the end of the month. We're gonna be hosting their 10 World Championship wrestlers that were wrestling 3 weeks ago at the World Championships. One of them got second in the world, so it's going to be awesome to have some high level women's wrestlers and coming in here, not only training but teaching our girls some things, not just wrestling, but what's going on in their culture, what's going on in their society as well. And same thing with me, right? To learn a little bit more of what's going on more globally in the world. But I think it's going to be a great opportunity for them to share their story, for us to kind of share our story with them, and as you mentioned, to start that relationship with them and really foster and try to build that into something. And maybe, probably when the conflict kind of resolves a little bit over there, maybe we'll get a chance to get over there someday in the near future, which, as I mentioned earlier, wrestling is such a small community. It's easy. For lack of better words, it's easy to kind of make these connections as long as you're willing to put in the work. At the end of the day, we all have the same goals to get a little bit better at wrestling, but really to become a better person. And they're going through the same thing, just with a lot different variables on their plate than we're doing. So I think it's going to be a great experience for our team, for their team, and really kind of open up our eyes to what wrestling looks like, not only, like you mentioned, here in this country, but outside in the world, and then more global geopolitical things as well, to kind of, again, just open up our eyes and be a little more cultured, be a little more diverse, and be a little more understanding of how people are, why people are the way they are.
That's definitely what I was going to say, is this will be an eye-opener at the very least for not only our girls, but surely for them as well. That's coming up in a couple of weeks, but first, one of the reasons I really wanted to get you guys on the show this week is we're going to have the first chance to get our eyes on your team coming up this week with the now annual event, the Black and Purple Duel at Mabee Fieldhouse on Wednesday nights. What can you tell us about that event on your side of things, and what can we expect from your team this year in 2023?
Yeah, we're super excited to kick off this year here this week. On our it's going to be an inter-squad duel with both the men's and the women's program here. On the women's side, we've got 9 matches to look forward to. We're also inviting our schools, or the dance team and the cheer team, to perform with us as well. Kind of integrate some of the teams on campus as well, and then we have our strength and conditioning coaches helping out as well, being the honorary coaches for the night, and we've also got softball and our baseball teams included. They're going to be our honorary team captains for the night. So it's going to be a fun event. Hopefully it's loud in the Mabee Fieldhouse. All the sports teams should be out there. But yeah, it's going to be a good introduction of what we got on the mat. It's not. This is this kind of simulation, right? We compete at the end of the month as our first official one, so trying to get that wrestling under the lights, wrestling in the singlet kind of out of the way. We'll do it in a controlled environment the first couple of times to try to get that out. But yeah, I'm super excited to see them compete. I know that they're super excited to get out there. A lot of them have been itching to do so because it's been a while since some of them have. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and we should have some good wrestling here in a couple days.
For many of them, it is their first opportunity to wrestle in college, and for almost all of them, it's their first opportunity to wrestle in our gym, in front of our fans, in front of not just you guys, the coaching staff. It's their first opportunity to really get out there. So in just a minute or so, what do you think we can expect from the team, since it's so much bigger, since you have so many people from all over the country as we've outlined? once we get into real competition in a couple of weeks, what do you think that we can expect to see from your team?
Yeah, I think it's first and foremost. I think it's gonna be nice and loud in there. That they're working together. They're working hard in the trenches together. So they're gonna be cheering and supporting each other when they're out there. But I think we're gonna see a lot of good stuff. We've been working some fun stuff already this year. Some of our returners and some of our incomers have some fun wrestling styles, and especially with freestyle, there's always a lot of action. So yeah, we should see a lot of points on the board. And really, what I'm most excited or looking forward to is just the amount of girls that we have out on the mat. Right, we're gonna have 18 out there on Wednesday. That's more than we have in our program in the first 2 years, and it's in history. And we've got some that won't be competing due to injuries and that kind of thing as well. So we've got more in the tank as well. So yeah, I'm super excited for that. Quite frankly, I'm gonna be kind of hands off that day and just be a fan, just be there and enjoying the whole thing. And I will be taking notes to see what we need to work on moving forward. But I'm looking forward to that.
We are too. That comes up on Wednesday night, Maybe Fieldhouse, the next edition of the annual Black and Purple Duel. Head women's wrestling coach Zach Revier, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see the team in action for real later on this month at Maybe Fieldhouse. But again, coming up first this Wednesday, the Black and Purple Duel on Wednesday in Maybe Fieldhouse at 6 o'clock. This is Eye on the Eagles. We'll be right back with head men's wrestling coach Eric Mateo right after this. Welcome back to Eye on the Eagles. We are live from Tanner's at Redbridge. Tim Hackett now joined by head men's wrestling coach Eric Mateo. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And officially welcome to our department as well. You've been a part of this program now for a year plus, but officially now joining us as our head men's wrestling coach this summer. What has the last couple of months been like for you as the team has split from that one wrestling program with 2 squads to now 2 real teams, defined teams underneath that program? You were part of the team last year as an assistant coach, but now you are the main man in charge of Avila men's wrestling. What has the last couple of months been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a lot of learning, but it's been great. It's been really a dream come true. For a long time I worked outside of the sport of wrestling full time, and then coached on the side, high school, and then last year as a grad assistant. So now I'm full time coaching wrestling. So for me, personal side, it's been great. It's been really a dream, and I'm really grateful for the people that initially brought me in, and then the people that promoted me to head coach. They have faith in me, so I'm thankful for that. And then on the flip side, it's awesome because these guys come in and they want to compete and get their education, and they're giving me their dreams and they're trusting me with their dreams. So that's pretty important, and it's a cool thing for me too. So it's been great. It's been, like I said, a lot of learning. But I think I'm a fast learner. So,
former collegiate wrestler at CMU or UCM, excuse me. I got my acronyms mixed up.
Yep.
At UCM, joining us as an assistant coach last year in year 2 of the program. It seems to me as if, now this is mostly an indictment of me rather than anybody else, but I feel as if we don't always know or share how much our assistant coaches do, how big of an impact they might have on any given team. I got the chance to meet with just about all of them over my time here, but obviously I deal mostly with head coaches, and so I don't necessarily get to see, because I'm not in practices like you are day in and day out, so I don't get to see how much assistant coaches always do, because invariably they always do have a huge impact. So saying you were just the assistant coach last year is doing you a disservice, because you actually had an immense impact on the success that the team had last year, and the team has had a lot of success even in just 2 seasons. So what was last season like for you, and what can you share about what your role specifically was with the guys and with the team?
Yeah. Every great team has great assistants, and every good team that I've been a part of has good leaders kind of in all levels of the organization, whether that's athletes or assistant coaches, etc. For me, I coached at the high school level for 6-7 years, and the guys that I coached with, I think, were pretty high-level coaches. So my transition to coaching at the collegiate level, I think for me it was I should have been here all along, so I never felt kind of behind on being able to run a practice, being able to communicate with athletes. The technical side was there for me, so it was, I kind of hit the ground running, I think. And then, getting to know the guys, and as assistants, you kind of have that opportunity to, you develop a crew of guys that are kind of my guys. So fast forward to now, I'm really grateful and blessed. I have 5 guys that are coaching with me, and they're kind of doing that. We wouldn't be where we're at. I mean, we haven't accomplished anything. We haven't competed yet, but the growth and the steps we've made in summertime and preseason, we wouldn't have made those without the 5 assistants that I have now. So they're pivotal to our growth. We had a good year, relatively speaking, but we took 44th in the country. Let's be frank. So that's why I brought these 5 guys on to help us improve upon that. So the assistants are everything. They're going to be spending the most time physically hands-on with the guys, and it may be different from other sports, but a lot of assistants and even myself will still wrestle with the guys. So I'm thankful that I have assistants that are, number one, willing, capable, and then have the technical knowledge. And they've been, we have collegiate All-Americans, we have national qualifiers, we have guys that have wrestled at high levels on staff. So
there's a lot of room for growth still that we'll talk about in a minute, but I think we would be remiss if we didn't focus on just a little bit about what you and the team accomplished last season. It's important to note that it is just year 2 of the program. The team had an immaculate dual record, had about a dozen guys placing at conference, 3 guys qualified for nationals, including 2 conference champs.
Yep.
And a ton of those guys are back this year for year 3 in the program. But again, before we get into year 3, I thought a lot of positive growth, a lot of team success, a lot of individual success in year 2 of the program, which I think is important to note.
Yeah, I have a high bar, so I think of that success as relative. Yes, we were 17-3, but anyone we wrestled that was worth anything, we lost to those 3 duels. So this year our schedule is tougher. I do not anticipate us being 17-3. That's a really, really good record. But again, who did we wrestle? So if you really look at the results, you'll see that anyone in the top 20 of the country, we didn't beat, right? But my main thing to remember for me is just stepping stones. They're all stepping stones to where we want to be. So good dual team, our first national qualifiers, our first conference champions. In year 1, 5th as a team in the KCAC. Last year, runner-ups in the KCAC. So hoping to just build and build and build and build. And every year we're getting closer and competing with Ottawa for that conference title. And hopefully bring some more depth to the KCAC so we get some respect across the country in our conference.
Fair enough. And if that's the goal, then you guys have done you guys have taken a big step into making that a reality. Again, just year 3 for the program in the KCAC, a newly sponsored sport across the country in the NAIA. It's still growing, but you guys have been a big piece of that growth, especially in this area as you move into year 3. A lot of those guys from last year are back. Like we said, you brought in a handful of new athletes as well, some freshmen, some transfers to kind of bolster the ranks.
Yep.
Feels as if this team is pretty complete. You've got a lot of different bodies at every end of the team,
yeah,
which I think it will bode well for this season.
Yeah, I think we do have some depth that maybe we did or didn't have, but as any wrestling season goes, there's guys that get banged up and guys that have whatever barrier it is that doesn't let them compete. So it's just a matter of strategizing those and making sure everybody in the lineup, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th in the depth chart, whatever, you are ready to go. And that's my message to my guys is you have to be ready to go. You never know when your number is going to be called. We need everyone in this program, top to bottom, every single weight, to contribute in practice because you never know when your number is going to get called. So I think as far as dual team will be, I anticipate and have expectations of us being a decent dual team, as in we'll have 10 guys that can compete. And now we're going to, like I said, we toughened our schedule up. So we'll see where we line up against some of the best teams in the country. We'll see. And I'm excited for those opportunities.
You will literally get to see how you line up against some of the best teams in the country because there are some elite teams on the schedule this year, including, first and foremost, Grandview, which is always the team to beat, duals and individually, nationals, everything. That is the program in men's wrestling in the NAIA, and just to name one team that is on the schedule. So, there were a number of really good teams on the docket last year, Ottawa, Doane, to name just 2, but there's plenty more good teams, top to bottom, coming up this year.
Yeah, and I think that was may have been one thing that we were missing last year was the mid-season competition, and part of that was being such a new program. We weren't at the Missouri Valley Invite. We didn't go to the Grandview Open, and those are kind of the big tournaments of each semester for the NAI. Some of the biggest, and so I think we need those mid-season matches to really test and recalibrate where we're at and have a realistic look. So when it comes nationals and conference tournament time, we've seen the best. And at least we have the opportunity to make adjustments. So, I'm looking forward to it. And, wrestling Grandview in a duel, I'm excited for that. And then wrestle Central Methodist that night. So it's a good opportunity for our guys, like I said, to gauge. Because I think for some of our guys, they're slowly learning that the gap is not as big as they think it is, and a lot of it is just mental and truly belief. Once we have kind of turned that belief corner, I think we're capable of some cool things. So.
We'll get our first opportunity to see your team in its new form with you as the head coach coming up this week, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you guys on the show this week. It is the next edition of the annual Black and Purple Duel this Wednesday at Mabee Fieldhouse at 6 p.m. What can you tell us about that event, and what can you tell us about what we can expect from your team?
Yeah, it's our inner squad, and part of it for our guys is a good chance to get a singlet on, perform in front of a crowd because, yes, we do singlet Saturdays where it's the wrestling team and we got singlets on and there's whistles blowing and it's a match feel, but it's different when there's a crowd. It's just a matter of fact. And this is a good bridge from practice every day, wrestling live matches in practice, to actual competition where it's not going on your record, but it's a good chance to get the nerves, acclimate yourself with those. For some, it's going to be their first college dual environment, and I think we have a pretty cool environment. And then it's a good chance to kind of showcase the sport of wrestling on the women's side. They wrestle freestyle, which is new for a lot of these athletes. They in high school they compete in folk style, come to college, and for women it's freestyle. So showcase freestyle and what they've been working on, and showcase our athletes and kind of a glimpse into what our potential lineups can look like. So it's exciting. And then there are a couple of matchups that we have in there on the men's side that will have roster implications. So I talk about this all the time. It's not just the inner squad, how you perform, and I'm looking, how do you practice, how do you train, how are you as a human being. But this inner squad, a few of these matches do have roster implications.
So that will go into the determination process. Not just who wins, but how they perform in these matches on Wednesday will help determine how the roster shakes out going forward.
Yes. In basic terms, yes, but it's not the end-all, be-all.
Sure.
It's just data and information for the coaches to determine what needs to be worked on and how you perform. And it's not necessarily win or lose. It's just I'm looking at their overall performance, effort, attitude. Of course, the outcome matters, but all of those factors go into determining who's going to be in our duel for William Woods and moving on. So. Yeah.
It's like you said, win or lose, that is important, but now you have the ability to kind of put all of that together. So you're still wrestling your teammates. It is still not an opponent necessarily, but it is still a competition with a result on the line, not one that doesn't go on your permanent record, yes, but with a different environment, with people watching, with something at stake for the first time. And from what I gather from talking to you guys, and I said this when we had Zach on the show, but I feel like I learned something talking to you guys every single time because you're that knowledgeable in the sport. It's really eye-opening for me. In this you will have the ability to learn something about just about every athlete on your team from this event on Wednesday. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Like I said, some have never wrestled. Well, yeah, some definitely haven't wrestled in a college duel. But you talk to many wrestlers, and they can tell you the age-old story of a practice room national champion, a guy that's just a world beater in the practice room, and I can identify with that, being really, really, really good, relatively speaking, in the practice room, and then maybe when the lights are on, you don't know how to deal with that, perhaps. So, and then some guys in the practice room, they're the opposite. They just kind of hang on and cling on and barely make it through workouts. Next thing you know, when the lights are on, so everyone is. It's a spectrum, and everyone's kind of on a different spot. And I think having the big lights on, having a crowd, having a singlet on, exposes some of that, which is a good thing. I want my guys to see it as an opportunity for growth. So,
what will you still have to see? What will you still have to work on between now and Wednesday and your first real competition against true opponents coming up in about 10 days?
Yeah. Well, my guys, they have done a beautiful job of really buying into what my staff is preaching, what I'm preaching, what our strength and conditioning coaches are preaching. They've bought in. So right now we're focused on what do we do really well, how can we fine-tune that, and then basics. A lot of this preseason and first couple weeks we're in week 2 of season now, we're hammering home the basics. Mike Tomlin, routine plays routinely. So and I really want us to live by that. If we're trying to hit a go behind, a guy takes a bad shot, we should be able to score on that at a high percentage. So really basics. Once we get some film, me and Zach were talking about it this morning, once we get to put our hands on another opponent and wrestle someone that we're not wrestling every day, we'll have a little bit better takeaways and some more things to fine-tune. So I know we're only 1 week into season, but I am excited to have to put our hands on someone else and glean something from that. Right now the guys are in that grind of wrestling each other every day and itching for the competition, which is a good thing. I don't want my guys broken down before the actual whistle blows. So they're itching and they're starving for it, and I've been reeling them back in, and that's all strategic. So that when the real whistle blows October 28th and on, they are starved for that competition. So they're ready to go.
First real competition will come up October 28th and maybe Fieldhouse against William Woods. But first, it's the next edition of the Black and Purple Duel this Wednesday at Maybe Fieldhouse starting at 6 p.m. We'll have a live coverage of that event right here on the Avila Sports Network, and you can join us live and for free at Maybe Fieldhouse this Wednesday night. Full week of action across Avila Athletics. We've got volleyball at home on Tuesday, soccer at home on Wednesday afternoon, the wrestling duel on Wednesday night, football at home on Saturday. Every team that's in action right now, except for bowling, they've got a little bit of a time off. But everybody that has a home event has a home event of some kind this week. We hope that you can join us. Coach Mateo, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tim.
That is head men's wrestling coach Eric Mateo. I've been Tim Hackett for all of us here at Avila Athletics. Thank you for watching this episode of Eye on the Eagles. As always, thank you to Tanners at Redbridge for hosting us. We appreciate them. We'll see you next time. Until then, so long.